We are back with week 3 of the Low Post podcast. I am here back with the foot doctor himself, Mr. Dr. Daniel Ruggiero, Daniel Joseph Ruggiero. If the guys on the podcast don't know your middle name, Danny, give us a hello.
I'm not a doctor yet. I appreciate you always calling me a doctor. I went to your high school practice one time and you told all your players I'm literally a doctor. Not a doctor yet, but another week in the books. Happy to be back.
Yet is the key word there. But we all have the most faith in you that you're going to be able to graduate and shed some good light onto the Temple University Owls. I know the men's podiatry basketball team is now in full swing with you on the roster, and they couldn't be luckier to have you. So we're happy to have you back on the podcast. I miss my favorite co-host ever. I think we do a great job together. So it's good to have you back.
Always. And it's a good week to have me back because I think this is, even though this year the league has a lot less teams and it's a lot of new faces, not as many familiar faces, this I think was a pivotal week for the league because you introduced something that I've been telling Joey to get on for years, and we finally made it happen. We have YouTube live streams with the in-game ticker at the bottom. Let's talk about that.
So it's a good thing you say that because I think it allowed you being in Philadelphia to watch the games very closely. It allowed me to watch the games that I wasn't able to be there for closely myself and watch them on YouTube before I left my house to go to the game. So I think that's going to be a huge step in the right direction. It is a huge step in the right direction for the league, for Joey, for the players. The fact that you can go back and watch the games, really cool. Pull highlights from the entire game now with the ticker at the bottom. I think eventually once you improve on this, you get better camera angles. You get a little bit higher up, you get the whole court. You can kind of do those NBA style camera angles. I think it's going to be great. It was a little low. Sometimes you're getting blocked by the referee. Sometimes you're getting blocked by players, but
yeah. And I'm not gonna hold that against them because it's the first night that they were doing it. And I was telling Joey like back and forth, like, oh, like this was going on. And like, I'll give them a little leeway because it was the first time, but it's definitely something cool.
It's awesome, and I think there's a ton of ways to improve upon it. And I think that's good. And I think that the more that the league takes those steps in the right direction, the better. And I think it was a great step. Everyone was able to watch the game. They were able to watch us play like crap and lose again, even though we said that wasn't going to happen. But we'll get to those games and we'll recap them quickly, and we'll get to some fun segments. But before I say anything, I do want to kind of send a PSA shout out to everybody who has expressed to me that they enjoy the podcast. It means a lot. Thank you very much. I try to keep it pretty fun on here. And I would like to extend to any of the players that do listen. I'll give you guys my phone number. Just come up to me at one of the games. And I'd love to get some guys on here to do kind of like a old man in the three style podcast where we talk to you guys about certain things and get your insight on the league and certain players in the league and teams and what your thoughts are. I think it could be really good to have you guys on here. So anybody that's willing to do it, we'd love to have you on. And we can definitely have some fun on here. I think it's a good time. We keep it pretty lighthearted. So, I'm definitely excited to do that. And Danny, do you have anything before we get into the quick recap of this week's games, or what do you got for us?
No, I mean, I just want to say, spreads went 4-0 this week, which is good. I will make a comment. I put in the Instagram post my comment about Lob City's history against Terrence Gallo-led teams. And they had, I think it was like 33 points is the average margin of victory. It's like they had a couple 15-point wins, a couple 40-point wins. It kind of evens out in the 30s. And it took every fiber of my being to not set the line for that game at like 30, 35. And I was like, I don't know what the attendance is going to be. I don't know what the injury report is going to be for Lob. Let's just set it at like 16 and a half, something light, something sweet. And it ends up being a 31-point game. And I should have just gone with the history and I would have looked like Jesus himself.
You would have looked like a hero, but I think you did look like a hero for setting it. And, if you bet with us this week, you would have been 4-0. You would have been a pretty rich man. So
the thing that I will say, the spread that I'm most proud of, and we can get into this game first if you wanted to do a quick recap, because it was a fair blowout. So is Game Breakers and Ball Don't Lie. I put that at 25.5. The end game cover of 26 by Game Breakers. Shout out to them.
Yeah, they got, good teams. What is it? What is Tyler Cruz's line?
It's good teams win, great teams cover.
Exactly. So, you did do a really good job setting those spreads this week. And yeah, we can get to that game. The game breakers we'll start with, just to kind of quickly recap them. They looked really good. Gian looked really good. Joe Secular looked really good. I'll share my screen just so everyone can see the stats. This is not going to be the correct game. I'm going to have to get to it. So bear with me for a minute. Um, but
I will say, like, I'm not to cut you off. When I was watching it, because this is something I told Joey about. I was like, how are you going to do the 8 o'clock games for the streams? Because if you have two games going on, you can only live stream one game. So it ended up being like they were doing this game on Instagram while the halfway game was going on YouTube. So this one was a little bit more difficult to follow because there was no scoreboard at the bottom, and like the scoreboard on court 3 is in the way corner, so you can't really see it as it's going on. But like Ball was hanging on for like a quarter and a half of this game.
Yeah, they shot well from three, 32%, not terrible, not the worst. Ellis Einhorn putting up 17. And Michael, I'm gonna absolutely butcher his last name if I try to say it, but he went 0 for 15 last week. This week he had 12 points. So huge difference for him. Hit 3 threes. Literally he was 0 for 15 last week. So must have just been an off shooting night, but we expected this to kind of be the outcome. Obviously, your spread was pretty perfect. You couldn't have gotten more perfect, honestly. And it was just it was an all around good game. The game breakers played really unbelievable, pretty much. This is what we kind of expect from them. 62 combined points for Gian and Joe. And then 23 with Hachi being their third guy. They're going to be a tough out. They're going to be a really tough team to beat. They
Almost a triple double for Hachi.
Yeah, they look, and they look like a really talented team. And I think almost a triple double for Gian as well. And I think going forward, they're gonna be the team to beat. Other than Lob, it's gonna be the two of them right now at the top. I don't see anybody kind of dethroning them yet. We'll kind of see how that shakes out, but I kind of want to keep it light on these recaps so that we can let Joey and the interns take care of the game recaps. But nothing too crazy that we didn't expect here. This is kind of what we've seen as the industry standard for the last 3 weeks. Anything you want to say about this game, Danny?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say like game breakers. It's not a comment that I was able to make last week because I wasn't there, but I think Shane touched on it where like we were all really shocked that game breakers beat Lob playing their style of basketball, that like fast paced run and gun kind of game. And they're keeping up with it. Like I think they've got probably the highest pace in the league right now. They're putting up a lot of points week in, week out.
For sure. They're putting up almost 100 points every week, and that's a recipe for success. To get to the next game, quickly want to touch on Halfway Crooks Air Mambas. Nothing again that we didn't expect here. All the games were relatively easy picks this week. And then our closest one, I think, actually ended up being the closest game. But Spence Freeman led the way, 17 points. Nothing really crazy from Dom Langston this week. Spence kind of took over. Carlton, as Joey now wants me to permanently call him, but he looked really good. Again, 1 for 2 from 3. That's exactly what he needs to be doing. Not too many threes from the Halfway Crooks, which is kind of atypical of them, but they made 4. They shot 33%. I saw Jared Hansen put one down, and it looked really good going in. So they're going to be good. They're a pretty deep roster all the way around. They have guys that can score at every level. Joey hitting his 1 3 that he took, his one shot of the game, his only stat other than his 2 personal fouls, which he loves to use in transition. So we're used to seeing that from Joey and the Halfway Crooks. And
Joey did have a few of those like clothesline clear path fouls.
Yes, and the Air Mambas played their game without Mario Player of the Week from week 2, Mario Valerio. And they it was a relative blowout, but I think if they have Mario, this game's a little bit closer. Mark DaCosta led the way with 17 points. Again, G-Day Roland looks like a really great player. I wish we could steal him. He's a really good big man. And he crashes the glass, gets the boards. The big difference here was that the Mambas actually out rebounded the Halfway Crooks, which is surprising, and still lost the game. Sometimes that's a really strange thing to see sometimes, but I think a lot of the Halfway Crooks shots just kind of went down. They had the Mambas had a lot of turnovers. They had 10 double-digit turnovers. The Halfway Crooks 3. That's going to be the difference in the game right there. When you're just having a quarter like the third quarter for the Mambas where you've had it close the entire game. I mean, it's really it's 5-3 and then two. So it's a 6 point game if you take out that third quarter. And so that's tough. You had really one bad quarter that kind of cost you the game. That was the difference. If it's a 6 point game going to the fourth, you probably keep it close.
This
And
was a game that the entire time I was watching it, I texted you about this because I'm watching it, and I feel like we've seen three very different halfway teams in 3 weeks, where like last week they were just kind of flat out like gunning it, and Duje's boys didn't have an answer. This week it felt like every time there was a little run by halfway, the Air Mambas like immediately came back and wouldn't let it get too out of hand, and they were keeping it within that like 4 to 7 point margin for most of the game. And then at one point I go upstairs because my girlfriend burnt her finger on a curling iron. So I go upstairs to like get her a Band-Aid, like get her some ice, whatever. And I come back downstairs and it was ballooned up to 20 points. And I texted you. I was like, what happened? I left like 4 minutes ago and it was a 6 point game. So
yeah,
that run did come, but it's like no one really like stood out on halfway this week. It felt like it didn't feel like it was as big a lead as it got up to. Like it felt like it was really spread out.
yeah. And again, I don't think that happens if you have Mario this week. You didn't catch the halfway crooks on a great night. They had kind of a midnight for them. And, I think it could have been a really close one if your top scorer is there. But, in reality, we did see, it was nice to see Mark DaCosta lead the way. That could be another guy for them that scores. Anthony Ramsey with 16 points. You had three guys in double digits. If Mario's there and drops 20, 25 points, it's a close game. It's a really close game. And obviously he takes shots away from the other guys, but I think, it might be a little bit closer, especially when you catch halfway kind of sleeping on a night like this, where you probably could have gotten them. They win a game with 66 points. That doesn't really happen too much in this league. So I think that, in the right situation, this is a night that halfway could have lost, but they do move to 2-1 on the season. Anything else you kind of want to add to this game, Danny?
I think it's really tough for Air Mambas because now I'm pretty sure they get game breakers next week. So that's another probably loss where they'll be 0-4, probably going into the halfway point of the season. So it's
Right.
tough because they almost had a win in week 2. And this is a game where if you had Mario there on the right set of conditions, maybe you could have stolen this game too. So now instead of being 1-2, 2-1, you're looking to be 0-3, potentially 0-4 after next week.
Right. Right. No, I agree. It's going to be tougher than the rest of the way. But again, every team makes the playoffs. We know what it's like. You can be a bottom seed and still get pretty deep in the playoffs. So doesn't really count them out. But, they do have a shot. And any team's got a shot in the playoffs. I promise. It's crazier than you think. And we'll get to our next game here. We'll get to the Lob City and the Ice Trays. I watched this game on the live stream. I was home watching this game on the live stream. It was out of hand pretty much the whole game, got really chippy. But there were a couple bright spots. I mean, we saw Lob City did their thing. Carl Lee was just kind of a monster. Jose was kind of a monster. They really didn't have any kind of answers for this team.
They kept Jose on a leash behind the arc, though. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, and they only let him shoot 4 threes, which is probably good. But the team collectively shot 25% from 3. But that's what they're gonna do. They're not gonna shoot you out the gym. They're just gonna get to the hoop. Carl Lee shot 82% from the field. I mean, literally missed 3 shots. One of them was a 3. Missed 2 humongous dunks that just would have probably ripped the rim down. So
He is somebody that he scares me. And
Yeah.
like I took a charge on Brad Allen, and Brad Allen is like, I don't know how big he was, but I'm like 160 pounds on a good day. And I took a charge on Brad. I would not want to be standing in the paint with Carl coming through. That is just something I don't want to see.
No, he's a scary dude, and he screams at the top of his lungs every time he dunks the ball. And it's look, this is why I sit the bench and I control the rotations. But he's gonna be tough to stop. This whole team is stacked through the nose. They had their whole squad there, minus Colin Burns. And when he comes back, hopefully he's healthy. I did hear that he got hurt, so shout out to Colin. We didn't never want to see that, but hopefully he comes back for them. And they're just tough every year. That's a reason that they've won every championship but one in this league. It's just the reality, and that's how it's going to be going forward. They're always going to be the favorites every single year, no matter what. And that's just kind of how it is because of their winning record. They're like, they're like, who is it? UCLA has the most NCAA championships in history for basketball. I believe it's UCLA.
Probably.
And they're like the UCLA. They have so many championships, and you can never really count them out. They have the history, so it's them. But for the ice trays, you and I were saying that there were a couple of kids on this team, Nick Lemoyne and Tyler Santana, that I thought were humongous bright spots for this team. Terrence Gallo obviously did his thing, no threes from him, but they shot 36% from the field. But I was super, super impressed with Nick Lemoyne and Tyler Santana this game. I thought that Nick hustled his tail off this whole game. And yeah, he was talking and chirping with Lob City, but I like that from a player. And he was hustling. He's a big dude. He was getting rebounds, following his shot. And then Tyler Santana was shifty. I thought he was real shifty around the rim. I know he only scored 8 points. I would have liked to see the ball in his hands a little bit more. I know he took 11 shots, but I mean, he looked real crafty around the rim. I think those are two guys that are going to be super, super, super enjoyable to watch for them. They have the 9-man rotation, and I was just really impressed by those two guys. Even though they lost, we expected it to be a blowout. It was, but those two guys looked great to me. What are your thoughts there, Danny?
Yeah, I mean, 9-man rotations are tough when you've got that many mouths to feed. It's kind of a balancing act. So I will say I agree with you with Nick. I was watching it and I was very impressed with what I saw from him. And it doesn't show up in the box score, at least in the points column, but he was a bright spot for them on a otherwise really rough night.
Yeah, he's a guy that I would love to steal from that team. I mean, that's a kid that you take and all of a sudden he's a humongous role player for you. He goes in there and he just like bangs bodies around and goes after loose balls and talks crap and gets in people's heads and isn't afraid to be physical. And I really like that out of him. He's a guy that if there was trades in this league, he's not someone that everyone would be like, oh, you're trading for a superstar. You'd be trading for a great role player, someone that you would definitely want on your roster. So I like him as a player. If he listens to the podcast, we were super impressed. So keep doing what you're doing. Again, we're not expecting you to drop 30. Just keep doing your stuff where you're hustling and kind of looks like you're being the heart and soul of your team. So we appreciate that. We like to see that. And anything else that you want to say for this game, Danny?
No, I mean, it's a cut and dry scenario. It's a 31-point win for Lob. It's nothing new. So let's get on to let's rip the Band-Aid off.
Rip the Band-Aid off. It was the fourth quarter for the Duje's boys in this one. 6 points in the fourth quarter.
I mean, I put that spread, I think it was like 3.5. And for a while it was looking really good because it was a 5-point game for the Duje's boys heading into the fourth quarter and just kind of fell flat in those last 10 minutes again.
Yeah, I don't really know what the situation has been down the stretch. We've had 2 bad fourth quarters 2 weeks in a row. But we have a 5-point lead going into the fourth quarter against an undefeated team, and you have to capitalize. I know we didn't have Dez this game. They also didn't have Marvin Dowdle this game. So, I mean, whatever.
You don't really need Marvin when Charles puts up 43 though.
And that's what we didn't have an answer for. I think in the fourth quarter, he just kind of took over. We didn't really have much of an answer for him, but I mean, we shot 40% from 3, which I can't really ask for more than that from our guys. I mean, that's a great shooting night. We shot 40% from the field to their 52. That's probably what kills you. We struggled around the rim. But 3-point shooting wise, I mean, we shot really well. I live with 40% from 3 for us. I think their problem is down the stretch. We were starting to give up easy baskets inside. We were given a lot of transition buckets. The turnovers didn't kill us. I mean, they had almost double the turnovers that we did. It was the rebound. So you look at the rebounding, we had 19 rebounds. They had 44. So Charles had 17 rebounds. I mean, he had an absolute monster game. We did not have an answer for him. I think that this game probably changes if Dez is there because he's the guy that probably guards Charles and also is a guy that's going to give you another 20 points. So I don't necessarily know if Charles drops 43 and 17. But it's tough.
Yeah, but I mean, we throw around the ifs all day, but there's the saying that I like to give to you is if my aunt had the extra appendage, she'd be my uncle. Yeah. So I mean, we can only we can talk about the ifs so much and I mean, it might have made a difference, but I think not to harp on you, something that it kind of comes down to for the Duje's boys this year is partially the inexperience. I mean, we were getting some
100%.
trips from some guys from the Connecticut League. They were saying Duje's boys are washed. And I had to come on and be like, no, look, it's a lot of guys missing from last year. We're reeling in some new guys. It's a combination of that inexperience, but also I think it's a combination of rotations. I think there were some points in the game last night where the four guys you had out on the floor just were not a good matchup for what the Warriors were putting out.
Yeah, it's tough because you want to get everybody in. But sometimes it's hard if you want to win games when the matchups don't make sense, right? Like it's so hard, and to run those rotations because you're up in the fourth quarter. Now, in the fourth quarter, we probably should have just run Brian, Lucas, Shane, and Wolfie. And you
I think you should have started with something like that, except like it started with the 5-point lead and you came out. Well, I can't remember who you came out with, but it was for the smaller guys.
yeah.
And they immediately went on like an 8-0 run, completely changed momentum. There was a timeout. And then after that, it was all Warriors after that. I think it was maybe like 2.5 minutes before you guys got a bucket in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, and that's partially on me. I switched the rotations up to try to get some guys in. I mean, it's hard when it's like you want to win games, you got to get guys in there, but like a lot of the times the matchups don't really lean themselves towards certain guys going in for every team. I mean, like, I don't even remotely go in the game unless I know there's somebody out there that I can at least attempt to guard, or the game's already done. And it's hard. I know a lot of people don't want to swallow that, or and certain teams don't do that. Certain teams, like I remember we're having that werewolf syndrome where, remember, if the Werewolves were literally a finals team last year. They lost their first 4 games of the season. And they're one of the greatest teams that's ever been in the league, really. But they would do the 4 in, 4 out. And then they lost 4 games in a row to start the year. And then they were like, we can't do that anymore because the matchups are what's killing us. It's not the guys being out there. You want everyone to get out there, but the matchups are killing you. And you honestly can't do that sometimes as much as you want to. Certain games, like next week, I think we'll be able to get more guys in, do whatever.
Yeah, next week I think is a better size matchup at least. And it's not as big of a one-headed monster that you really got to contain. I think they're more of a spread out team on the ice trays that it's going to be a lot easier for you guys to make some different rotations and get everybody active without it affecting you too much. But Charles Alexander was the kind of guy where if you didn't have the right people on the floor, he was going to do what he did.
Yeah, and that's like I said, it's partially me. I gotta be better with the matchups because I run that. And like I said, it's hard when you want to get everybody in because everybody's paying to be in the league. But it's like certain games you might have to bite the bullet. Unfortunately, when playoffs come around, I mean, that's when everybody has to put out their best lineups and just go with it. And everyone's got to be ready because sometimes the matchup might call for it. But
good thing is everybody makes the playoffs.
Everybody makes the playoffs.
Everybody makes it. The only bad thing is that if you let a couple of these games slip from you in the beginning of the year, it really will affect your path.
Right, for sure. And it's going to be tough the rest of the way. We're 1-2. I think hopefully there's a few more games that we can squeak out and get a few wins. But standing wise, we're going to end up being the middle of the pack team and having to fight our way back in the playoffs at this point. I don't see us winning out the rest of the way, but you never know. I mean, you could catch somebody on a bad night, injuries, whatever the case may be. Not that you ever want that, but again, this fourth quarter, we had the game. We're up 5 going to the fourth. And we just absolutely fell flat in the fourth quarter. And there's really nothing you can say about that. Other than, it was a horrible, horrible fourth quarter for us. And, you had the game, you're up 1 going into half, you're up 5 going into the fourth. We gotta be better at closing out those games because that would have been a big win. That would have been a huge win for us against the Warriors.
It was a win that you guys needed coming off of a bad loss last week. It was for 30 minutes. I thought you were going to have that big win.
Yep. And it turned into a big one.
1-2.
Yep. And those things happen. There's no excuses for them. But when you're up 5, you can't lose by 17 at the end of the day in the fourth quarter. So, we'll move on from it. We'll hopefully get a little bit better. And we just gotta be better. We gotta be better about, getting to the hoop and better about playing defense and better about transition defense. And guys have to be willing to swallow pride as far as rotations go.
And hey, look, I'll tell you, like I'll quote our good guy, number 99, Dennis Rodman, Garen Megadesian. It's a war. So, I mean, I said it last night on Twitter, like you might lose a few battles, but at the end of the day, you got to win the war. And everybody's got to keep their head on their shoulders. We lost the war against the Warriors, you know?
Yeah, like I said, I think I'm gonna start being a little bit more serious with the rotations and being like running just straight matchups. So, hopefully that'll give us a little bit better of a chances coming up in the next weeks. But I think we're gonna be okay. I think we're gonna be fine. Again, once it's playoff time, we'll be all right. Just got to get a few more wins under our belt to get the record where it needs to be. But I think we definitely have a few more wins in us, for sure. And I think, the big one for us is going to be, can we win that game, week 7 matchup against Halfway, the rematch? I think that's going to be a huge game for us towards the end of the year. So, not looking too far ahead, but that's going to be a pivotal game, I think, for us at some point. We got to get these wins in these next couple weeks for sure.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about, speaking of week 4, let's bring it up a little bit. You've got Air Mambas and Game Breakers. We'll start with that one. You've got a 3-0 versus an 0-3.
Oh, wow. Summer 2019 is the first thing that pulls up. Goodness gracious. Were we even
What a
there?
time that was.
No, we were winter 19, right?
Well, winter 19 was our first year, but summer 19 was the championship year. But that's winter 19, that's Connecticut.
Oh. Why is it Connecticut League?
Here, hit Rhode Island League again. It does this all the time.
It's all right. It's all right. We'll pull up the files a little bit later. But yeah, so what do we got for our matchups next week? Read those off one more time, Danny.
Yeah, so hit schedule, just the big schedule. Beautiful. And now we go down.
So week 4.
So yeah, we got Air Mambas and Game Breakers. So it's either I'm predicting this is going to be a 4-0 and 0-4 at the end of the week.
Yep.
Do you have any thoughts you want to provide on it?
No, I think that's pretty self-explanatory there.
Okay. A game that becomes a lot more interesting is Lob and the Warriors. This is like, I think last year when Gian was on the Warriors, the first week when they played, it was like 120-84 or something like that. Like it was a complete blowout, even with a guy like Gian on the team. But depending on, I said it this week for Lob, depending on attendance, depending on injury report, and depending on who shows up for the Warriors, if you get, Marvin Dowdell back as well, could be a close game. Could be interesting.
Yeah, I think that's probably the game of the week there.
I think so too.
Just with the matchups. I think the Dujes and Ice Trades is going to be a close game. I think it's going to be much closer than we think. The Ice Trades are a scrappy team, and if we let them scrap, we're going to find ourselves in a tough spot. We have to be,
you got relegated. Look at that. You got relegated to Court 3 status.
I know. We haven't played on Court 3 in years.
I mean, you played a few last year.
I know we played the semifinals on freaking Court 3.
Yeah, what was that all about?
Yeah, that's what killed us.
Did they do both semifinal games at the same time last year?
I don't know, but there was something going on in Court 1, but we are like, Court 3 is like our curse.
No. Both of them were on Court 3 last year because Charles showed up after their game.
Yeah.
For that, the Warriors lost in the semifinals, and then you're out there warming up for your game against the Werewolves, and Charles Correa shows up during our warm-ups, and he's like, what, the game was at 7? And he was like, oh my God, I didn't show up.
And it was a close game, right? Like he would have made a big difference.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like I think it was the same kind of thing where it was close for 3 quarters and then Lob blew it open in the 4th, but oh God, woulda, coulda, shoulda.
Yeah. Yeah. And so we'll play the Ice Trays on week 3 on Court 3. That'll be like I said, I think we're more talented basketball wise, but if they start to out scrap us and we don't have a response, that's going to kill us. We need to be a little bit tougher. That's a huge criticism of ours right now, is that we're kind of soft. We're playing soft this year. So I think we got to be a little bit tougher. I think we really got to start sticking it to teams and not being afraid to go out their neck and, bring back the championship vibe of the Dujes boys. That's what has to happen. You gotta go for the neck. But right
This
now,
reminds me of that first game that we had Tyler Cruz come in and coach us in the winter because it was against a Terrence Gallo led team. And it was one of those pivotal moments where it was the same thing. You've been playing 3/4 of good basketball and you fell apart. So I'm interested to see what's going to happen. I think this is probably the first week that I can think of where I'm at least predicting there will be two somewhat close games, but I'll be surprised.
what are your thoughts on the ball don't lie halfway crux at 9 o'clock, Danny?
I think we end the week still with two winless teams.
Yeah, I would agree there. I think halfway's on a roll right now.
Yeah,
They probably
ball don't lie ball don't lie that we're able to hang with the game. I keep wanting to say the bucket chasers, but they were able to hang with the game breakers for like a little bit. I think maybe because halfway can be as explosive as the game breakers at points, but I think that they're more like they're a little bit more tame. They're a little bit more like spread out. So I mean, if they shoot well again, like they did this past week, and get a couple guys in the 40s, 50% from three, it could be a close game. But I ultimately I do think that halfway finds that extra gear again, like they did last night, and they pull away.
and I think I like the ball don't lie. I just don't like them this week. I think that they're going to get a win at some point. I really do. I think that they can get a win against Ice Trays or the Air Mambas. Or I hate saying this, but if you catch us on a night where we play all 4 quarters, like we played the fourth quarter last night, we're definitely a very beatable team. And we've lost to two of the top teams, but I think ball don't lie can catch a win. I don't think that there's any team that can't possibly win a game this year.
No. But the thing that I hate is that it happens every year, is that when you get one of those new teams that comes in the league and they lose their first couple games because they're like, oh, it's 8.5 feet. Like everyone's going to have fun. And they get there and they realize how competitive it can be. Sometimes you get those teams that lose the first couple of weeks of the year and then guys just stop showing up and they like have to play with 4 guys. They got to play with 3 guys. So I hope that Air Mambas and Ball Don't Lie aren't two of those teams, because especially Ball Don't Lie, because they're a team that a few years ago found that extra gear and ended up winning late down the stretch and then won a playoff game too. So
Yeah,
their time will come. It's just a matter of being patient.
And I think the team that needs to win the most. So let's get to that. In week 4, and I have a very, very it's very honest answer, but what team needs to win the most in week 4?
I mean, you can say Ball Don't Lie or Air Mambas all you want, but at the end of the day, I think it's Duje's boys.
I that was going to be my answer, because I think if you can go get to 2-2, you have 2 of the toughest matchups you're going to have the next 2 weeks. You have the Duje's boys have the Game Breakers and Lob.
And then I know you got halfway in week 7. Who do you have in week 8?
You have halfway week 7, and I believe Ball Don't Lie in week 8.
Yeah. I mean,
So
this is after these last 2 weeks, Duje's boys are in a situation where I think absolute best for them. I think ceiling is 4-4. You finish at that like 4 or 5 seed, maybe 5 or 6 seed, and you try to fire on all cylinders for the playoffs. If you lose and you end up at 1-3, this is tough, because then you enter week 7 and you're 1-5. You're just the way we've seen you guys play the last 2 weeks. I don't think it's wrong to immediately chalk up a loss for these next 2 games for you guys.
No, I don't think it is either. I don't think we're going to be favored. I wouldn't favor us right now. And it's bringing me back to that winter 19 season a little bit, where we're undersized and we're struggling because of size wise. And we have like talent. We just have really talented guards. And like in reality, right? There's not many teams that have the 1-2 punch of a Brian Yars and Des Williams, right? Like I would argue that 1-2 punch is better than a 1-2 punch on halfway, right? Like, but halfway has so much size and so much, like
they've got size and they've got depth.
and they've got depth. And not that we don't
One
have depth.
through nine, however many guys it is that halfway has, you put them on other teams, they would like, I mean, maybe with the exception of Joey, you put them on other teams and they're all good contributors. Like Jared Hansen's taken a big backseat this year. But I mean, most teams would like be happy to have him as their guard.
He's typically a guy that's like a 10 plus points a game, you know? So I think this week 4 is the most pivotal for the Duye's boys. Really.
And I think the same goes for the Ice Trays because they're also sitting at 1 and 2. And then let's look at them for the rest of the year. They've got Ball Don't Lie,
which is probably a win for them, but it's going to be a close game.
Then they got the Mambas, which is another win for them, probably.
No, they have the Warriors.
No, Ice Trays.
Ice Trays, Ball Don't Lie is week 5.
I'm looking at week 7. So the Mambas, they'll scratch off another win. I mean, they're another team that probably best case scenario. I mean, they're another team that could beat halfway.
They're a team that could be ahead of us come. If they win this game, this game is going to matter for the standings. Ice Trays and Duye's boys, whoever wins this game is going to be ahead of the other in the standings.
Oh yeah, and they're two teams that I could see finishing around that 4 and 4, 5 and 3 mark. Maybe not 5 and 3 for the Duye's boys, but the Ice Trays, if they win this game, I think they could get to 5 and 3. I think they could get halfway on the right night. They could get Ball Don't Lie again. They could get the Mambas again.
So that their rematch in week 7 is the Mambas. So like they could really this is a huge game for the Duye's boys because if you finish with the same record, we have the tiebreaker.
Exactly.
So you have to win this game this week.
Yeah.
Biggest game of the year, I would say, for the Duye's boys. Biggest game of the year in general, as far as standings go, is going to be this game this week for the Duye's boys.
And it's crazy that we're in week 4 and we're already thinking playoff implications.
But it is. It's by far the game that's going to weigh the heaviest on the standings this season.
Mm-hmm.
Other than the week 7 rematch with Lob and Game Breakers. At that point, if they both only have one loss and it's a split, but that's going to be for the 1 or 2 seed.
Yeah, exactly.
It's very important for playoff seeding for the middle of the pack team. So, I'm going to have to rally the troops, get them ready for this game because it's the biggest game of the year. Biggest game of the year for sure for us. And I think if you lose this game, you put yourself in a really, really, really bad spot where you're having to play. You'd rather play the 4 seed than have to play the 3 seed in the playoffs.
Oh yeah, exactly. I mean, we've been doing that math every year where we're like, what side of the bracket is the better one to be on? And I think no matter what, whatever side you're going to be on, you're going to get either Game Breakers or Lob. And I think you want to be on the side of not Lob. You want to save them until the finals, always.
I agree. And I think our first round, right now, to me, it looks like a first round matchup for the Duye's boys is either going to be halfway or the Warriors, which I feel okay with.
Yeah. I mean, you feel like you're going to be in that 2, 3, or you're going to be in that 2, 7, 5, or 2, 7 or 5, 3 matchup, right?
No, I would see them in the 6. It's a 6-3, 5-4 matchup.
Okay.
Because I still think that Mambas and Ball Don't Lie will be those bottom 2 teams. But depending on where you are, if you're the Duye's boys, you're looking at either right now a 6 seed or a 5 seed. If you're the 6 seed, you face the 3, which is most likely the Rhode Island Warriors or the Halfway Crooks, depending on where they are. So you're either as a 6 or a 5 seed, you're either facing the Warriors or actually, I mean, say the Warriors went out, I mean, you could realistically face Lob. Because right now, I think Lob is 3. Oh, Lob is 3, correct?
No, yeah. Lob's 2.
No. Why would they be 2?
They're only going to have 1 loss.
The Game Breakers don't have
the Warriors beat Lob?
So the Warriors are in first. No,
Game Breakers are in first.
They're 3-0. The Warriors are 3-0.
Warriors are also 3. So yeah, you're saying if everybody wins out and it all stays the same.
Correct.
Yeah. I'm going on the inclination that Lob gets their win against the Warriors, and all becomes somewhat right in the world.
Yeah, yeah, and I think you're right. So I think really, realistically for the Duye's boys, you're looking at a Warriors or a halfway crooks matchup first round.
Yeah.
So but you got to win this game because you don't want to risk falling back even further. And the Mambas or somebody catches a win. Oh, catches like fire and hits like 2 wins, catches somebody on a bad night, and all of a sudden you got to face Lob or the Game Breakers.
Yeah, and those are scary matchups.
Especially in round one.
That's one thing, because you're saying who has the like must-win game of this week. I would love to know like which team do you think any of these teams towards the top still have something to prove? Because in my mind, the Warriors are 3-0, but I feel like they're still getting talked over when you think about the Game Breakers and when you think about Lob.
Yeah, I think they're getting talked over because they beat halfway, which is a good win. I just don't know if they got a great version of, but again, you can't really judge them on the version of halfway they're playing. You can't judge people on the version of teams they're playing, really.
And it's tough because it's like that was a very big win for them this past week, very convincing, heavy margin of victory. But that whole margin came in the fourth quarter. Still, they have that, but I want to know like what more do they have to do for fans of the league, other players in the league, the interns to look. And I mean, like, if you're one of the interns that this is your first year, you might be like, oh yeah, they're legit. But if you've been around for a while, you might say like, oh, just like hold on a little bit. What do they have to do to be like, okay, no, they're legit?
I think for them to be legit, you have to win a game against one of the top 2 guys right now. If they play live and they get blown out by 40,
is there any amount that they lose to Lob by where you say, okay, that's good enough?
Less than 10.
Okay.
Realistically.
And like, do you think it's the same goes for Game Breakers? Or do you think that because Game Breakers are technically a new team that there's a little bit more leeway there?
I think they got to beat Lob. And I hate saying this because we've said it like it doesn't really matter and you can't judge them, but I think they have to beat a Lob full strength. Like I think for the Game Breakers to be considered legit. Sorry, I have to plug in my computer before it dies on me, but
that's how they get
the Game Breakers to be considered a legitimate contender at this point, they got to beat a full strength Lob. I think they do. And I hate discrediting them. Because
I mean, keep in mind though, they weren't full strength either. Charles wasn't there for them.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know. I think that these teams are legit, right? I appreciate what you said about the Warriors. Like, you almost lost a huge game. Like that would have been a huge loss for the Warriors, right? It would have been really big for us to move to 2-1. We would have all of a sudden been ahead of the Warriors head to head, but behind halfway. And it would have been weird because they beat halfway beat us. And then if we beat the Warriors, it would have been this weird triangle of
I have the math for that though. I have the formula for the seeding.
But that would have been important for both teams. Bad important for the Warriors, good important for us. So,
yeah.
I think that they're legit. I also don't necessarily think though that this loss discredits us as a legit team because I think you show that you can beat a team without your best player for 3 quarters. And then
3 quarters doesn't give you anything though.
I know. But then again,
it's not like I'm not discrediting you or saying you're not legit, but it's the water is getting tepid.
It is. And it's in the same breath of, okay, you said that the Warriors, are they legit because they had 1 quarter that was able to allow them to win that game? I think so what do teams need to do to be legit? I think Lob, we already know, is legit. The Game Breakers, I think they have to keep winning and stay undefeated the rest of the year. If they can win that week 7 matchup for me again against Lob, they're legit. Even if they don't, if they keep it a close game, that proves it to them. I think the Warriors have to scratch out a few wins against those top, at least a win against either the Game Breakers or Lob, or really close games with both. I think halfway has to do the same. They have to keep a close game with the Game Breakers or Lob City. I think for the Duye's boys, they're key to being recognized as the legit contenders. They have to play 4 quarters of basketball. I don't think they've done that once this year. Like to touch on your point, I think if they can play 4 quarters of a complete game, they can win these games that are close.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like I think the halfway game was winnable, the Warriors game was winnable, but you didn't play 4 quarters of basketball. You might have played 2 or 3.
The other thing, not to keep touching on the Duye's boys too much, but the other thing, like we were talking about rotations, I think as equally important is defensive management. Because I feel like we love the zone 4 years ago, and now like we're back to just strictly man pretty much. But some guys like not love it, but some guys get beat off the dribble a lot. And I feel like, I mean, knowing when to switch between a man and a zone, given situational, because maybe that could help you get more guys in the game without worrying about letting up huge runs.
Yeah, I think that's what we did the year we won the championship, Danny, was we were losing games because we were getting beat off the dribble. And we said, you know what, let's switch to playing zone the rest of the year. And I think we won a lot of games doing that. I think it kept our guys fresh. It kept everybody like on their toes, and you were able to rotate in a few guys and kind of hide some guys that aren't as great defensively in a certain spot in the zone based on where people were. So that might be the thing that we need to do going forward. Really, to be honest with you, I think it's something that we can definitely do as a team to improve ourselves defensively. And I think that's just going to be, we might need to, that's literally the exact switch, if you remember, that we made the year we won the championship, was we said, what are we doing wrong? And we switched to zone and we started winning games every game.
Another thing I want to touch on, if we're thinking about like the what ifs for teams, let's spend a couple minutes on halfway.
Yep.
Because I said it in the beginning, I feel like we've gotten 3 different versions of them in the last 3 weeks. You had the how do they lose that game week 1? You have the blowout win week 2, and then you have that kind of like stalling performance for a few quarters in week 3 until they kind of turn on the jets. But even when you look at the score, it doesn't seem like it was one guy. So like, what's their ceiling in your mind? Do you think that on their best night they're good enough to beat one of those top teams and potentially compete for a championship?
Halfway, you're saying? I do. I think they have the talent this year to do it. I just think they need to stay consistent. The thing that worries me is their 3-point shooting. They've gone away from it, which is not typical of halfway, but it's been working so far.
It's been working for them because if you're working with Spence shooting at most 2 or 3 a night and making one of them, I'll live with that. Right. I think he's in trouble when he starts taking 6 or 7 and he's making one of them.
Yeah, but the only thing is I wonder if it's sustainable to win games without shooting threes, winning games with 66 points. I don't know. Is it possible? I mean, they've been winning, but halfway Crooks might be the lowest scoring team this year, honestly.
For as explosive as they can be and for as athletic as their best guys are, the fact that they're averaging only around 60 points a game is crazy to me.
I mean, it's close. Halfway might be the lowest.
With the exception of week 2, they did blow out for 80. But like the other 2 games, they're right around 60, 65 points.
Oh, yeah, this is swapped. It says we had 80.
Yeah, they flip-flopped it.
Yeah, I was going to say, so then that's, yeah, we might be the lowest scoring team, honestly. We might be one of them.
You guys had the same symptom that they did. You dropped 80 something in the first week and it kind of stalled out the other 2 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I think halfway has the keys to be able to be one of those championship teams. It's tough to say that with Lob and the Game Breakers and the Wings, but you never know. I mean, it's anything can happen in this league, as we well know. So, I'm interested to see how it shakes out the rest of the year. And to kind of see where things go from here. But just to get on our picks before we'll post them on social media, Danny, what are your thoughts on these 4 games coming up this week? If you had to make predictions this week for people to bet with us.
Ooh, okay. So if I had to so we don't have a bet with Shane today because Shane's not with us. So we could do a bet with PJ if you have a prop bet that you're thinking of, but let me pull these up. I'll have to do a little bit more.
These aren't going to be our exact picks. I'm just saying more so, who are you going to favor to win in each game?
Yeah, so I don't have a full spread for you. I'll give you a rough estimate. I'm going to say game breakers are going to win by, I'll keep it to 20 this time. I think that if Mario shows up, like it's still going to be a decisive win, I think. But if you have everybody there for the Air Mambas, it isn't going to get away from you as much as the Ball Don't Lie game got from them at times. Warriors and Lob. I want to, every fiber of my being, put that at like 13, 14.
For Lob.
For Lob. And you hope that everyone on Warriors comes ready to play and they can keep it within 10. But I think 15 is a good starting place. Duje's boys and ice trays. It's 2 teams. Like ice trays, what got their week 2 win?
I believe.
Okay, so you've got a team that spaced 2 losses with a win in between, and then you've got Duje's boys that are trending down. I might want to put it at like a pick'em or anything. It's going to be within 5 either way.
I think it's a close game. I think it ends up being.
I think this one's. But we thought the Warriors were going to be a close game, and we were kind of proven wrong. But what are you going to do?
Yeah,
and then Ball Fly halfway. I would put that at 20.
I agree there. I think that's a good spread for that. Yeah, I think that that's relatively like we said, the Duje's boys gonna be the closest game this week. They're gonna have to scratch.
Give me a bet with Pete pick. What's one player that you're expecting you want to see a big performance?
Let's go. Spence Freeman will set the line at. You want to set it at half a 3 or 1?
We'll set it at 1.5 so that it cashes if he makes 2.
Okay. We'll set it at 1.5 3-pointers made. So you can take the over or the under or whatever you'd like on that.
Okay. Give me 1 sec. I actually got one that I'm thinking of right now.
We'll put these on the tweet as well for everybody to see.
I want to go. Okay, wait. So I got to do some quick math here. 18 plus 12 is 40. No, 18 plus 12 is 30. I'm going to go Hachi Amini over under, let's say 37.5 points plus rebounds plus assists.
Oh, in his full stat line, you're saying?
Yeah. Points plus rebounds plus assists. We're going to go 37.5 for Hachi.
37.5 stat sheet stuffer for Hachi. 1.5 3-pointers for Spence Freeman.
Yeah, book it.
All right, we'll put those in the tweet for you. Danny, is there anything else that you want to say? We'll keep the podcast nice and short this week. Anything else you want to say for all our fans out there, all our listeners, all our players?
Yeah, hey, we hope that you had a beautiful sleep. Hit the snooze on the alarm clock. Get another 5 minutes. Play it back with us again. We hope to see you again soon.
Awesome. That's going to do it for week 3 of the Low Post podcast presented by Chelos Bar and Grill. We are so grateful that you guys listen to us every week and keep giving us good feedback. Again, anyone that wants to be on the podcast, we'll be here and we'd be more than happy to have you. But my quote of the day is going to be, why am I wearing blue? Take care.
Why are you wearing blue?